Leader of the third party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And I just want to say that I'm glad that we have the opportunity to be asking questions of government after this time, and being in the depths of the second wave of COVID-19. The public has a lot of questions, and it's important we have this opportunity to be able to ask them. And as we come to terms of being in the depths of this second wave, we must recognize that COVID-19 has not only exposed the inequalities in our society, but continues to deepen those inequalities. We're not actually all in it together. Some of us have the certainty of jobs that are not at risk because of COVID-19 and can work safely from home, even relying on delivery of groceries as a buffer from the risk. Others work in jobs that don't allow them that security. Healthcare workers, teachers, principals, custodial and cleaning staff, people working in retail, food service, transportation. None of them are able to stay home while continuing to earn a salary. We also know that this virus has disproportionate race-based impacts, but we don't know exactly to what extent. My questions for you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Premier. Telling people to stay home is not good enough. We need targeted supports that match the realities that different British Columbians face. To create those supports, we need disaggregated data about who is getting sick and where, including income and ethnicity. When will the Premier make this a priority and make the call to start collecting this critical data?
Minister of Health.
Thank you, and thank you to the member for her question and her assistance and advice during the many months of the pandemic. The member will know that British Columbia was the first to provide information around modeling, the first to do a province-wide survey to see the effects of COVID-19 on groups across BC. That all of that information is publicly available, and we've continued to do so. It is the case that right now we are not providing, daily case counts, disaggregated data, but we know what the facts are. We know precisely what the facts are with respect to Indigenous people. And we know that people who are doing essential work and others who are vulnerable are most affected from COVID-19. I agree with the member that COVID-19 affects people differently. It clearly does. We only have to look at long-term care. We only have to look at people with chronic diseases. We only have to look at people who are doing essential work to know that. But I disagree to say we're not all in this together. I think people in BC have come together in extraordinary ways, and we have to continue to do so. We will continue to add and provide information and more information to people. But we have a pretty strong idea, and that's why the host of measures taken by the government across government ministries have supported people who are renting, supported people on income assistance and disability, supported people in vulnerable circumstances, raised up the wages of workers in long-term care and so on. We understand the scope of the situation, and everyone understands that the impact on some is greater than the impact on others. But I believe we can best respond by coming together as a province. I know the member agrees with that, and I know we'll continue to do that.
Leader of third party on supplemental.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I agree absolutely with the Minister of Health that British Columbians have indeed come together in the face of COVID-19. But that doesn't mean that it is impacting us equally, and I heard him agree with that as well. It is government's job to put policies in place that recognize that the impacts are not being felt equally and respond to that inequality of impact. And to do that, government needs evidence and data. We need to heed the voices of countless community leaders who are calling for this change and to collect disaggregated data from Black and Indigenous community leaders to the Human Rights Commissioner to the South Asian Mental Health Alliance. Visible minority communities have been hit harder by COVID-19 than the general population across the country, but in BC we know very little about what is actually going on. We are one of the least transparent provinces in Canada when it comes to COVID-19. Most other provinces are far ahead of us in providing more detailed information about where cases are occurring and who is affected. and yet this doesn't seem to be a priority. My question again through you, Honourable Speaker, is to the Premier. Why isn't BC heeding the calls of the leaders of communities who are asking that we collect more disaggregated data and be less transparent in our explanations about COVID-19 and its impacts?
Minister of Health.
Well, I simply disagree, and I do so respectfully with respect to the collection of data. What BC is doing, that many other jurisdictions in the country are not doing, is continuing to do case management and systematic contact tracing, which means we're treating cases of people not just as groups, but as individuals. We've hired, for example, over 1,100 contact tracers since August, in addition to the team of contract workers, contact tracers, more than 500 that we put in place before. So I think British Columbia and the British Columbia Health System has a greater understanding of the impact of COVID-19 on communities and how to address it. And that understanding informs our decisions. I simply disagree with the member that we aren't being transparent. Well, I think one important consideration I put to the honourable member, because sometimes people did, and this was true at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's true now. There is a desire for more information about where COVID-19 is in communities, but it's also critical for us, including for all of the people most affected by COVID-19, including the very people that the member talks about, that privacy be maintained, that people be protected, that they trust their healthcare system, that they can come forward so we can contact trace. Those are critical values that we've put in place and have balanced here. We were the first to provide our modeling. We provide regular detailed information, respond to questions virtually every single day, either in press conferences or in other forums, and we are in the legislature. And I'm always looking to do better. And clearly on the case of taking disaggregated data, disaggregated race-based data, we have a direction from the Premier and the government to do better, and we will. But at the moment, the effort we're making in British Columbia, the extraordinary effort of our whole system and our whole province, is second to none in Canada, and we must continue to make that effort together, because this pandemic isn't going away anytime soon, although there is some good news on the horizon, and we got a lot of work to do together.